Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider alongside Brandon Crosslin and Casey Campbell. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing great.
Are you laughing at me?
No, I'm laughing at the Good Morning America story about NASCAR drivers raise safety concerns. It's just sent the link. You can blame Ben, but I was trying not to just lose myself here at the Open.
Oh, I thought you were laughing at me because I had food in my
It feels like an SNL skit, like it's not been real.
Hey, just an update, unrelated beer, but the Braves are down 2-0 to the Marlins right now.
Oh, thanks. I'm not watching right now, so let's keep that hush hush.
Well, we will talk a little bit about that Good Morning America segment and, of course, recap the Truck Series race a little bit later on in the show. Brandon, we will see you for the truck and Xfinity recaps a little bit later. In the meantime, Casey, I want to give you an opportunity. I understand that you have some news regarding Indy Lights and the road to Indy for next season that you wanted to share here at the start of the program.
Yeah, thanks for allowing me to do this, Ben. And, of course, thanks for having me on once again. Big weekend in the road to Indy. I know that the big news in Indy Lights, of course, HMD confirmed their latest driver. That, of course, is Daniel Frost, returning for 2023. Picked up a couple wins last season. Juncos Racing will advance up to Indy Pro 2000. Actually, from Indy Pro 2000 to Indy Lights next year, they will have two cars. They will abandon their Indy Pro 2000 program. That will effectively be taken over by the TJ Speed team. So they'll have two entries. So they'll have a couple entries in Indy Pro 2000 as well as USF 2000. So good news for those series. And also, Yuvan Sudhamarudi will be heading up to Indy Pro 2000 with Exclusive Autosport. That was confirmed this week. I think this week as well. So, yeah, some interesting news. The grid's kind of being put together. We'll talk more about this later on. But possibly 19 cars in the field next year for Indy Lights, and that's for the first time. It's the biggest field that they've had in a long, long time, Ben.
And 8 of them, correct me if I'm wrong, are going to be fielded by one team alone. Is that correct?
That is correct. That, of course, is HMD.
That's right. Yeah, certainly looking forward to a bigger field. I know we've had this discussion before on this show. There's been some concern about the prize fund and how much money is available, but I think one of the flip sides to that is we are going to see a little bit of a boosted car count, and certainly one of the biggest car counts we've seen in Indy Lights in many, many years. So that is a positive sign for sure. Now, switching gears to the ARCA Menards Series. We had 2 ARCA races to recap this weekend. We'll start with the ARCA Menards Series West. Cole Moore finally picked up his first ever West Series win for Bill McAnally Racing, ahead of championship frontrunner Jake Drew in second and Joey East in third. Moore's win is also BMR's first victory of 2022, which extends their long-running streak of seasons with at least one win. So, Casey, given BMR's long history of success and a number of strong runs this season from Cole Moore, are you surprised it took that combination this long to break through and visit victory lane?
No, I'm not, because remember, they did change manufacturers this year, because going from Toyota to Chevrolet, of course, all of BMR and as well as MHR, of course, that's the truck team, they're running Chevrolets this year. So obviously when you change manufacturers, yeah, it's just a plate on there, but it's a different engine package, different everything there. Maybe the power isn't as strong or something like that, or something other than that. But For sure, it's definitely different, but I'm not surprised that they didn't find victory lane. And then, of course, you had Austin Herzog lead midway through the year. Landon Lewis came in. I think he's having more consistency. Of course, Landon's a part of the Team Hornaday development program that I've been affiliated with a long time. Of course, it's Ron Hornaday's kind of development program. I know that Candace Hornaday has done a pretty good job with the drivers that they've assembled over there. So yeah, it's I'm not surprised that it's taken this long. I honestly didn't expect BMR to win this year with the results that they've been having. Awkwardly enough, the Sunrise team and BMR kind of flip-flop. Remember, Sunrise went the entire last season without winning, and now this year they've kind of won all the races. So I think it's obviously it's Jake's championship to lose. I think he's gotten the bag, and obviously it'd be a big win for Sunrise because I know there's some there are some rumors around the future of that team and a potential sale possibly to the High Point Racing team next year. So obviously we'll get more details on that as to come, but who knows what could happen with that? What could happen with that team next year?
Well, it's funny you bring that up. I feel like when I've been hearing the team name in media, it's been a lot more Brancati Racing or the Brancati team than the Sunrise 4 team. So I feel like there's already been a little bit of a shift in terms of what that team is going by right now. Of course, we all still call it Sunrise Ford Racing, and it's still the 6 of a 9 cars under the Ford banner that we've come to know and love in the West Series for many, many years now. But you're right. It is interesting to look at how that dynamic has kind of shifted. Of course, Jake Drew nearly won the championship last year, but he would have done so without winning a race. So it's interesting. Of course, you brought up Bill McAnally Racing shifting from Toyota to Chevrolet. I'm not surprised Bill McAnally Racing isn't in the running for a championship this year, but I will say I am a little surprised it took Cole Morvis long to win. I feel like we've seen him have some strong runs. He probably could have won a couple of races by now, but it's great to see him finally put that deal together. I think people might forget how long he's really been with BMR in the West Series because he was with them in the mid-2010s for a couple of years running part-time and then was away from the West Series for a few years, came back to the team the last couple of years now. So to see him finally get that win, it's a long time coming, and he put on a good show for us on Saturday night. And I also agree with you on Jake Drew. Obviously, he's had a phenomenal season. It's certainly his championship to lose. I think we can basically call him the champion-elect at this point. There's simply too much of a points gap for anybody else to be able to make that up in the couple of races we have remaining here. Now, shifting to the main ARCA Menards Series, it was Sammy Smith who took yet another win for the Kyle Busch Motorsports team at Salem ahead of Jesse Love for Venturini in second. Daniel Dye was the highest finishing championship contender who finished in third. Nick Sanchez finished sixth, so he saw his championship lead come down even more to just a couple of points. Now, Roger Carruth, his teammate, struggled with a suspension issue, which put him out of the race with a 15th place result, which effectively ends his championship hopes with just one round remaining. Smith, meanwhile, could finish as high as fourth in the standings, despite missing 4 of the first 5 races due to the age requirements. So, Casey, I had a 2-part question here for you. How impressive have you been by Smith this season to be able to climb that high in the points despite being part-time technically? And also, what do you think is going to end up being the result of his championship fight between Sanchez and Dye?
Well, Sammy Smith is basically in the car that won the championship last year with Ty, the dominant car that Ty Gibbs drove to all those wins. He's effectively Joe Gibbs Racing with the KBM name on it. So I am impressed that Sammy's. Obviously, he hasn't gotten to victory lane as much as Ty did last year, but I honestly think that it's been impressive so far. I know a lot of people are kind of talking about where he's going to go next year, whether he is going to go to the Xfinity Series or not. But he's certainly putting on a show at the ARCA level so far. And Toyota is just continuing to show their dominance over there. I mean, just look at if we can put the graphic up again. Just look at the top 5 there. I mean, but the top 2 are Toyotas. It just shows you that it's up there. And how about big shout out to Amber Balkan in 9th and Tony Brodinger 8th. How about Bryce Hogberg tying his best career finish in 10th? But the guys I want to look at is Daniel Dye and Nick Sanchez. Daniel picked up some points, and we're going to talk about the next part of the question that you have here, Ben. But it's definitely going to be interesting heading into the final race at Toledo.
Right. Well, then let's lead into the second part there. We've got a tight championship battle between Nick Sanchez and Daniel Dye. I guess we can take a question from a chat room, our own Kobe Lambeth here as well. It looked like it was going to be a 3-horse race for this championship. Raja Caruth has DNF 3 of the last 4 races. So, Casey, are you surprised by his second half season collapse here, as Kobe puts it?
I am a little bit. It's just, the Rev cars sometimes weren't as strong. I know they had maybe bigger cars, higher quality cars when they were on the super speedways than they were on the short tracks. So it's definitely when you're having bad luck and you can't get out of it, it's tough to get out of. And I mean, he's going to learn. I think it's definitely going to make him stronger. I know Raj has got some opportunities for next year to uphold. Obviously, he could still run some ARCA races as well. But yeah, it's a learning year for him. Remember, this is his first full ARCA season, so it's definitely going to be definitely been a tough stretch for him down the road. But I am a little surprised by that.
Yeah, I have to say I'm kind of surprised too. I would have thought he would have won a race by now and might be firmly in that championship fight. And I know earlier in the season, I think Brandon was saying that it was a matter of when, not if, he was going to win a race. And of course, he is still looking for his first ARCA Menards Series win. Now on to the championship fight itself. We're pretty much just down to 2 drivers now, his teammate Nick Sanchez and Daniel Dye as well. Who do you think comes out on top? I know you're going to be there at Toledo. We'll get into that in a moment as well. But who do you think has the upper hand in that battle?
Oh boy. You know what? I don't know. I really don't. I think you got to lean towards Daniel Dye. GMS has been strong on the short tracks, and he hasn't won yet this year. Nick has 3 wins, but they all come on super speedways. Talladega, the first Kansas race, and Michigan. So we potentially could have a champion with 0 wins, but it's a points format, not the playoffs. That would be actually really, really interesting if that were to happen. What would you think about that? Because I know what
would I think of ARCA Menards Series playoffs?
No, I mean if the champion won on a points format.
If the champion won without winning a race, I don't have a problem with that at all. I think Daniel Dye has had a very solid year. You look at the results, the number of top 5s and top 10s that he has. I mean, he's done everything except win a race. And when you have a series like ARCA where, there's a couple of ringers that come in, for Venturini, but just do a couple of races. And obviously Sammy Smith isn't running for a championship, but he's out, performing immensely well in that number 18 car. I think it's very tough to win in this series. I think it's tougher than a lot of people realize, especially when you have such strong part-timers. So we look at, the full-time drivers and see, well, Daniel Dye hasn't won a race this year, and his championship protagonist, Nick Sanchez has only won a few races. Raja Caruth hasn't won a race, but there's so many drivers deeper in the field that aren't racing for a championship that go out and win all these races. It's, a tough level of competition to win in, even in the ARCA series. And I think Daniel Dye has come close, and I could see him, taking a win and winning the championship on a walk-off at Toledo. But, he could just do it by finishing a couple of positions ahead of Nick Sanchez as well and win the championship that way. But I wouldn't have a problem with it no matter what. He's acquired the most points throughout the season. He's a worthy champion. I don't think there's very much discussion there.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, because your thoughts on the points playoff system is legendary on this program. So, yeah. So that's that. Oh, also Sammy Smith will be in the race. Taylor Gray will be in the race. Jesse Love in the 20. Landon Pemberton will be in this race as well. Of course, Tony Breidinger and Amber Balkin will be there. Greg Van Els will also be there. Matt Gould, of course, the son of Bill Gould so Nice will enter a car in that field as well. Youngs was going to make an entry, but I just heard from the team they withdrew. And then also Andy Jim Kowiak will be there too. So they have a pretty mid-20s from when I talked to ARCA today. So it should be a fun weekend, and I'm going to be there.
Well, I think you just answered the question I had for you. I know you're going to be there and be on site covering the race. Is there anything else before we move on that you're looking forward to or looking out for beyond just the championship battle, of course?
I think there's a lot of things to look forward to. I think I want to see, I'm going to be down there Thursday night. I'm going to have some there's going to be a lot of coverage, a lot of events that are happening on Friday. There are a couple drivers who are going to be visiting Southview High School, which is right outside, if you're familiar with the Michigan-Ohio border, Sylvania, which is right on the tippy top of Ohio as you enter in from the state of Michigan. So a couple drivers will be there to speak with the welding classes and marketing classes. So that'll be exciting for those kids. And then in the downtown Toledo, we'll actually have the two championship contenders, Daniel Dye and Nick Sanchez, as well as Mr. ARCA himself, Frank Kimmel, of course, the 10-time ARCA champion, I believe, who works with DGR. And we'll also have the mayor of Toledo there as well to welcome in. And this is a big week for ARCA. I know that there's also a fan fest. Lots of ARCA champions, former ARCA champions will be there. Pretty much it's going to be a fun weekend. I know that ARCA and also Menards, the fan fest will also be at a Menards store, which is literally across from the racetrack. So I cannot wait to be down there. Can't wait to represent, of course, my channel and of course the Grid Network as well. So my first kind of at track coverage, as well as helping out with you guys on the Encore show.
Well, no doubt you're going to get some great interviews and some great content for us to be able to use on the Encore show as well. So we appreciate that and the hard work that you're going to put in this weekend, as I know you always do on your on-track, on-site coverage. So we're certainly looking forward to that. We do have a couple of comments in the chat room before we move on here. Going back to the Indy Lights situation, Casey, maybe we can get your thoughts on this as well. We could see some F3 and F2 drivers switch to Indy Lights, plus the possibility of Jamie Chadwick coming from a W Series, and our own Adam Lemery's in the chat room as well. He says he also hopes that Jamie Chadwick runs in Indy Lights next year. So, Casey, what would you think of that? Do you think Jamie Chadwick has a Lights opportunity lined up for?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. All right. Sounds good. Of course, there is still a lot to be confirmed on that front, so we will stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Now, our colleague Joshua Burch could not be with us this evening, but he did record a 5-minute recap of the Moto3 and Moto2 action this weekend. So we will go ahead and show that to you all right now.
So did you miss the Moto3 and Moto2 this weekend? Don't worry, I've got you perfectly covered. Let's start off then with the Moto3. It was the dry race on the Sunday as well, but that didn't mean they had an easy weekend. Twice they went out in wet conditions as well, and both times they struggled as well to meet the conditions as well, as optimal as we might like them. But it did provide a mixed up grid, and in the Grand Prix as well, it was a tale of two halves. The first 10 laps were utterly exciting, the middle part of the race was a bit dull, but the last half was absolutely fantastic. Dennis Foggia taking the win from Sasaki and Rossi, completing out the podium as well. The top three all separated by less than 2 seconds as well. They were in a battle throughout the race trying to find the right places. Further down then, Izan Guevara was leading at one point, got forced down wide onto the exit part of the track, dropped down to 5th position as well, but the biggest surprise as well came for the driver's second, Sergio Garcia. He was all the way down, involved in an accident right at the start as well with Suzuki and Toba. Garcia did actually end up going down on the deck at the last corner. He finished the race out after getting back up on the bike, going around a couple laps, then retiring in the pit lane. So now Guevara has a massive points haul in the championship. Mathematically, he could clinch it next time out at the Australian Grand Prix. Now into Moto2 as well. This one was a little bit of a stop-start affair, and this is why. When the race started, on the grid, the rain came down. I know, how Formula 1, but the start was delayed for 10 minutes. Then they were sent out on wet tyres because in Moto2, you do not have the ability to come in and swap bikes. You only have one bike per rider, so they had to get creative. So we delayed the start. Everything was okay. They went out on the formation lap. Few bits of areas as well that we thought, there could be a problem. When they lined back up on the grid, the heavens opened. The race started, everyone thought it was dry, and then we hit turn 1. A wall of spray up everywhere. Clouded completely as well down towards the turn 3 hairpin. We continued like this for 8 laps. During that time, local hero Songkat Chantra, who started on pole position and was leading the race, dropped it at turn 5 and fell off due to the wet weather conditions. A staggering amount of riders retired. Dalla Porta, Alcoba, Chantra, Iagura and Boyaba all crashed out in the same conditions as well. After 8 laps as well, Philip Salek was leading this race by a commanding way to Tony Arbolino. Coming out of the last corner, Philip Salek went wide, Arbolino slipped back through and crucially crossed the line to complete lap 8 and start lap 9 in the lead of the race. It was during this time, as soon as Arbolino went through, his hand went up. "Stop the race," he said. Philip Salek's hand also went up. Immediately the red flag came out. The conditions were appalling. Absolute river. It was literally like we were on a river, no longer a racetrack. So the red flag came in. 40-minute delay, then we got the 10-minute signal to restart the race. And then the rain came down heavier again. That delayed the restart by a further 10 minutes. Eventually, the rain lightened up and we thought, okay, we can get going. The track was still sodden at this point, but they sent the bikes out on a sighting lap for a quick restart procedure of 5 laps. However, as soon as we got back down to turn 3, the heavens opened again. Worse than before. Riders couldn't even see the riders in front of them as well. They were all going wide and could not get back to the pit lane without significantly slowing down. One rider even with his leg kicking out from underneath him. So the race was red flagged again on the sighting lap. But due to the fact that it would be the restarted race that would have the distance, the stewards had to confer. 10 minutes later, the red flag officially threw and the race was cancelled. The first part of the Moto2 race would stand, but because 2/3 distance had not been completed, full points could not be allocated towards the event. So we are in the unusual circumstance for the first time since 2019 that half points have been awarded in the Moto2 category. All this means, however, that the results stand. So Tony Arbolino wins from Philip Salek second and Aaron Canet in third. Augusto Fernandez finishes in 7th, Ayagua finishes in 6th. The two championship protagonists as well, just having enough, which means that the title unfortunately does have to go on to the next round. In Moto2, now Augusto Fernandez's lead is 234 points, Ayagura's lead is 232 points. 2 points separate them going into the last 3 races. It looks like just with MotoGP, that is going to go down to the finale. But Australia could be the chance for Izan Guevara in Moto3 to become the world champion.
Thank you for that, Josh. And now let's shift gears to the NASCAR Truck Series. Matt DiBenedetto took his first career win in any of NASCAR's top 3 divisions, but it did not come without controversy. Brett Holmes appeared to beat DiBenedetto to the start-finish line by mere inches, but as much of the field wrecked coming to the checkered flag, NASCAR eventually threw the caution and determined DiBenedetto was out in front at the moment the field was frozen. Brandon Crosslin joins us once again. Good to see you, Brandon. I'll start with you here. Do you have a problem with how race control handled the finish? And if so, should NASCAR have thrown the yellow right away or held it back and just let them race to the end?
Yeah, first of all, I want to apologize for the cough there. I did not realize for some reason that my mic would still be going. Anyway, yeah, I do have a big problem with that. They were, I think they were already past the tri-oval there at the front straight, or at, the front of the racetrack, and then they're going to make it to the line, and that should have been it. We should have had a race to the line there. There's no reason to pull out the caution from race control. Now, did they think that afterwards? Possibly, but from what we saw there, it was very disappointing that it occurred how it did. Matt DiBenedetto, in my book, as much as I respect him, as much as I respect that Rackley team, they're just basically outside of Murfreesboro, very close to where I'm at here. It was just I would rather want fairness here, and I really don't think they won this race. I think Brett Holmes took the checkered flag. He crossed the line first, but they had to go back and look at the caution, and it made this confusion. And also, I saved a screenshot of the broadcast of the 2 trucks waiting there to figure out who was going to burn out, because they don't know. They didn't know yet. And so just a big old handful of confusion on to mess up a great Saturday truck race, despite the Jordan Anderson wreck there that we're all hoping him for best wishes for him. But Matt DiBenedetto was not the winner, even though he was.
Well, we'll talk about the Jordan Anderson crash here in just a moment. Kobe's saying someone in Metallica got a little trigger happy with the button. Casey, do you agree with that sentiment there?
Yes. I'm just, Brandon said it best. I think it's, I don't know. I'm going to pass on that one.
Sure. Yeah, well, I've got to say, I agree with both of you. I think, what happened with the status quo is not the way we should be running things here. Either you have to throw the caution immediately as soon as the first truck, I forget who it was, but somebody I think was spinning right back on into oncoming traffic. And, the caution can be thrown there. I can see justifying that decision if you expect a lot of trucks to get torn up. Or you could say we're just a few hundred yards from the start finish line. They're all going to crash anyway. At this point, it's inevitable. Nobody's in the catch fence or anything like that. There's no fireball like we had at Daytona a couple of years ago. At this point, let's just let them run these extra few hundred yards, just cross the start finish line at the end there and let them race. And I think if they had done that, we would have gotten a thrilling finish with Brett Holmes, a feel-good home track victory for him. That would have been a nice feel-good story that we could all be talking about, as is Matt DiBenedetto. He's been a journeyman driver. It's a long time coming for him. And certainly, like you, Brandon, I respect the journey that he's been on, as well as the Rackley team. And it's a great day for them. And, it's nice to see a first-time winner, of course, and, one of the smaller teams take the fight to the top teams and win a truck series race. But at the same time, I don't know if the right truck won this race. I think the winner 999 times out of 1,000 should be the car or truck that crosses the finish line first. And that wasn't the case what happened on Saturday at Talladega. And it's not the first time either. I'm thinking of, I think Brennan Poole had a win taken away from him because they went back and looked at the caution light, and Elliott Sadler ended up winning that Xfinity race. So it's been an issue for several years now. I'd like to see NASCAR be a little bit more consistent on how we run these races to the end. Yeah,
I really just want to know what was going on inside the race control's head. Like, really, what made that decision seem right at the time? And I also want to know, do they feel the same way about it now that it's been done, or were they trying to keep it as it was to save face so they don't look like they made a mistake?
Well, listen, I'm the last guy that's going to put on a tinfoil hat or say like NASCAR, has it favored for certain drivers over others, or they have it out for certain drivers. But if you think about it, if we're going back to the moment of caution and freezing the field, in theory, you could make the argument race control could handpick the winner of the race depending on who's out in front at the time that they throw the caution.
I think that's what we're all thinking.
Yeah, it's not and what I went back to is like, Mark Martin, let's just give you your 2007 Daytona 500, right? I mean, I'm sure Mark Martin fans are looking at this and thinking, where was this? Where was throwing the caution for the big accident on the last lap in the 2007 500? I mean, we'd be talking about Mark Martin as a Daytona 500 champion after all those years. And, it goes back to the phrase consistently inconsistent. I think that's been a problem with NASCAR, not just on these issues of green, white, checkered or overtime finishes and wrecks in the final lap at super speedways. But, of course, when Myatt Schneider is thrown into the catch fence at Daytona in the Xfinity Series earlier this year, when, we had the big fireball of the Daytona 500 when Michael McDowell won, of course, in those instances, you have to throw a caution for safety reasons. You can't have drivers continuing to plow through that. When the wreck gets to that point, obviously, there's no reason to allow the drivers to be racing at full speed there. That is absolutely justifiable. But, if it's just trucks spinning or a couple of trucks going into the wall and you throw a caution for that, when they're all going to spin and wreck anyway, as if you're somehow going to prevent something there, and you rob us of an extra 100 yards or 200 yards, whatever it is, to get to the finish line, I have a problem with that. And I think a lot of fans do, judging from the reaction on social media, because there really was a moment where, if you had thrown it here, I think one of the Thor Sport trucks was ahead, and they were saying maybe they could have won the race, or Eckes and Rhodes were up there as well. So I just think that, there's a consistency issue when we have finishes like this that really needs to be addressed, because it's not the first time, and unfortunately, I don't think it will be the last.
Right.
And also, I was thinking in the back of my brain, like, great, another reason for Twitter to hate Matty D for some reason. Like, he already gets enough hate on Twitter, and this reverting the winner kind of thing, it just added more. I'm sure it added more to his plate as far as hate mail and backlash.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Twitter's a wonderful place with all of that.
Smiling faces, indeed.
Yep, that's right. All right. Well, I do want to, on a more serious note, talk about Jordan Anderson real quick here. Of course, Anderson's truck burst into flames before spinning towards the inside wall, and he had actually already started to undo his seatbelts and climb out of a truck before it hit the inside wall as he was trying to escape the fire. Now, Anderson was airlifted to a local hospital out of Talladega Superspeedway, where he was treated for second-degree burns. He did release this statement later that evening saying, "So grateful for all the prayers and support, have been in some great hands with all the NASCAR and UAB nurses and doctors. No doubt God's hand was protecting me through that one. Scariest moment of my racing career by far. Ended up with second-degree burns across my neck, face, right arm, hands, and both knees. Getting cleared to go home tonight. Doctors say everything should be healing up within a few weeks. We'll keep everyone updated on the healing process, but just thankful it wasn't worse." Casey, what's your reaction to seeing this crash, especially given the discussion surrounding safety in this sport right now?
That's probably one of the worst crashes I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen somebody like hit on as someone was trying to get out. Like, remember when he was trying to get out of the truck? Like when the truck hit the wall there? I've never seen that before. Something like, wow. It's just, it just kind of skipped. Your heart skips a beat there for a second. I'm like, at least like, I mean, if you're engulfed in flames, no matter how safe the trucks or cars are, you could die from that. So yeah, it's probably one of the worst wrecks I've ever seen. We had something similar like that, if you remember, in the ARCA race last year with Derek Lancaster.
Right.
So I don't know. It's just, I mean, I think it's just one of those deals, man. It's just, it happens, but you want to find every way to prevent that.
Yeah, it was really scary there for Jordan Anderson, and I was baffled just watching it because I thought he was like trying to get out and almost got sandwiched between the truck and the safer barrier. I mean, I'm sure part of him did, and surprised there wasn't more injury from even just that contact, not just the burns from inside the truck. But really glad to see that. Excuse me. Really glad to see that notification from him, and that the doctors have released him, and then it'll take some time to heal. But yeah, really was expecting the worst, and really didn't see I was trying to look for a update on him, and didn't really see it for a while, so I was afraid of the worst, actually.
Yeah, well, we were actually on the air for the pre-race show, and Joe, I was backstage at that point, and I have a truck race on in the background, and he could see me visibly reacting to it, and he like messaged me backstage and said, like, "Is everything okay?" And I just said, "Yeah, I'm watching a truck race, and we just had this massive accident with Jordan Anderson." And Casey, I'm with you. It was shocking to see like half of his upper body like hanging out of the driver's side window, because I'm thinking to myself, you're heading on to the inside wall there, and I guess like that must have been an indication of just how bad the flames were inside the cockpit, that he would be willing to risk getting sandwiched between the safer barrier on the inside wall and his truck when it hit the inside wall, as opposed to staying in the truck for a few more seconds and dealing with the burns. Obviously, he got badly burned, just from the amount of time that he was in the truck, but we are so grateful that he is okay and going to make a recovery here, hopefully within the next few weeks. I don't know if we'll be able to see him again for the rest of the season. Of course, we'll see his cars and trucks out on track, but certainly wishing him all the best and hopeful that he can return to the track sooner rather than later. I do want to bring up, though, I do want to address this. I know, Brandon, you were laughing about it at the start of the show, and I think it is kind of amusing, and it is very tempting to just laugh at these guys. But on a more serious note, the GMA story that they ran on Sunday morning, I think we actually have a comment from Kobe here at the start of the show. He calls it lazy journalism.
Exactly.
And I think that's the perfect description of what it is. And I think it's also, honestly, that is, I think Dave Moody said this as well on Twitter this afternoon. That's an indication of why people are continuing to lose trust in mainstream media. Because if you think about it, we're all experts in the NASCAR and motorsports world. We all know what happened there with that story inside and out. And we see GMA take it and run with it on their Sunday morning news program. And we can recognize they used a picture of Myatt Schneider instead of Jordan Anderson. I know Myatt's his driver, but that's still inexcusable to get that wrong. They used footage of his truck crash when the story was supposed to be about the next-gen safety concerns that have Kurt Busch and Alex Bowman sidelined. So they kind of put two stories together there. And then for the second time, they did this after the Ryan Newman crash as well. Look, we've talked on this show. Jesse Iwuji's a great guy. I've got nothing personal against him or anything, but why are we rushing to get a word from him on these issues when he has never even, to my knowledge, tested a Cup Series car, let alone a next-gen car, let alone raced the next-gen car? So why is he the one that we're going to get his thoughts on the safety issues rather than somebody that's raced the next-gen car like a Chase Elliott? I think there was a clip from a news conference or a press conference rather, that was included in that story, but it was just kind of this comedy of errors here. And I just think to myself sometimes, if they're messing all of that up here, on the NASCAR side of things, how is anybody supposed to trust what they're putting out on other important issues? So I think, we're a very small, podcast outlet. We're trying to grow into a more respected media outlet here and send people to more races. I know, Casey, you're doing a great job. You'll be at Toledo next week, but it's important for us to make sure that we have all our facts right. And look, nobody's perfect, but when we get something wrong, we come on the air, we apologize for it, we make the correction ourselves, and we let our viewers know that, we made a mistake. GMA is with, the American Broadcasting Company and ABC, and they're one of the top morning news shows, and they have a viewership base that is exponentially larger than what we've got or what other people just within, NASCAR Twitter or NASCAR media landscape have. They're putting out this story to all their viewers who are being misinformed with the wrong photos and two stories being put together. It's just, quite frankly, it's irresponsible. And I think, we need to hold, these outlets accountable, because it's far from the first time that we've seen, I think during the pandemic, CNN ran a story that said NASCAR's Indianapolis 500 in August. And it's just, you look at this and think to yourself, how can you mess it up that badly? And I think we need to hold these people accountable for their errors, because they have a huge, huge platform, and you can't be putting out information like that when you mess it up that badly.
Really, in the non-motorsports echo chamber, in news reporting and all that, I'll say it again, they only see it as this: cargo vroom vroom. And that's all they know. And so you can't blame them because they don't know. But also they need to do their research.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do it on a serious topic, especially like that, you need to do your research.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Ben. That shows not only that they're inconsiderate about our sport, but also they're probably inconsiderate about all sorts of other topics that they're informing us of as experts, and that's kind of infuriating. But.
And you brought up another good point as well about doing your research. And I understand, like, GMA is a morning news show where they talk about all sorts of things. I don't expect all of their writers or researchers or on-air personalities to know everything about every subject in the world. That would be an absurd expectation to put on anybody. But if you're working on a show like that, you need to be prepared to cover the biggest stories in this country and worldwide as they come to you. And if something comes across your desk that you're unfamiliar with, do your research, make sure you have everything set, double check everything before you go on the air, and then run with the story. Don't just run with it and hastily put it together in a display of lazy journalism like that. It's ridiculous.
To Good Morning America, it was clearly just another drop in the pile. It was just another story.
Yeah.
By the way, you heard the Brandon Brown news first right here on Grid.
We sure did.
Yeah, that's right. We're working to get there. And, like I said, Casey, I'm sure you're going to break a couple more stories next weekend at Toledo. So we'll look forward to that. To circle back one last time here before we move on to Xfinity, Kobe Lambeth in the chat room saying, I'm glad Anderson wasn't out a few seconds sooner because I feared him getting squeezed between the wall and the truck. That's something that we've, all three of us have mentioned here, just talking about it. And of course, Adam Lemeris, I think we can all agree with that as well. Continued prayers for Jordan Anderson. Certainly hopeful that he gets back to the track as soon as he can and heals up well. Now, moving on to the Xfinity Series. AJ Allmendinger finally did it. He won a super speedway race, just barely edging out Sam Mayer. As we pull up the results for you right here, you see his colleague racing teammate Landon Castle finished close behind in third. Ryan Sieg, another great day for him and that small independent team. He finished fourth, and Josh Berry completed the top five for Junior Motorsports. Also of note, in complete opposite faction to Daytona several weeks ago, Every single car that started the race finished under power, making this the first time in any of NASCAR's top 3 series that we had a super speedway race without any DNFs. So, Brandon, I'll go to you first here. Were you surprised at how clean of a race we saw, given the carnage that we just saw a few weeks ago at Daytona?
No question. Absolutely. This was an anomaly weekend at Talladega Superspeedway. We're probably not going to get it in the spring. We probably won't get it next fall, but we got it this time, and thankful we did. And I don't know how you can look at the Xfinity race, or especially the Cup race, and say that you had a bad time. If so, I really want to know why, and because you don't have much to back you up. It was a good weekend for Talladega. It was a great weekend for NASCAR as a whole. And after what we've been coming off of, especially in the Cup Series past couple of weeks, it was great to finally have that. But we're focusing on the Xfinity Series here. They usually have a lot of carnage there as well, but I think it's easier to play your cards smarter at Talladega. It should be, in theory at least, being wider and the ability to have a little more wiggle room than you would at Daytona. But yeah, glad that everyone was safe and that it proves that you can have a good race without costing thousands and thousands of dollars.
Absolutely. Casey, you want to answer that as well?
Yeah, I just think it's there's a lot that went into this, and obviously it was surprising a little bit. I think they knew NASCAR has not had the best few weeks, and so to have something like this at a track where many people expect the worst, to have one of the best weekends out there just proves that maybe they're doing the right thing and stuff. So it was a solid weekend. Talladega is one of my favorite tracks, and actually it is my favorite track. So we saw really great racing in the Xfinity Series and in the Cup Series. The Truck Series we did too, to an extent. But overall, a solid weekend for the Xfinity Series. And yeah, AJ Allmendinger timed that move perfectly. And another learning experience for Sam Mayer, because he doesn't have a lot of experience on these types of tracks, because he's been wiped away in a lot of he's been a victim to a lot of crashes in those races. So not of his own doing, but yeah, he just got caught up in it.
Yeah, well, no doubt that win is coming eventually. Sam Mayer, no doubt.
Could come this weekend.
It could. Now, we did get some news that I want to cover very briefly here today, and it's fitting. We're talking about AJ Allmendinger having won the Xfinity race. There are reports from The Athletic today that Allmendinger is returning to the Cup Series full-time in 2023, and I just real quick want to play a flashback to our show a couple of weeks ago and one of the predictions that Casey made.
And by the way, who said AJ Allmendinger was going back to Xfinity? That hasn't been confirmed yet.
Well, I don't know. I don't see him getting back to the grind of 36 Cup races. We'll see. I'm sure Kaulig would love to have him. He had another great run at Bristol last night in the Cup race as well. So I'm sure if he's up for it, they'd love to put him in that 16 car, but who knows what's going to happen. Well, there you have it. I was wrong. Casey, you were obviously correct with that prediction. So I'll go to you first here. What's your reaction to the news that AJ Allmendinger is going to be back in the Cup Series full time next season?
Yeah, it is. It's not surprising. As people may know, I kind of, some people this has kind of been floated around the industry a little bit. So that to have AJ back in the Cup Series, obviously, he'd obviously had to be okay with it and all that stuff, because he said, I don't want to go Cup racing. But it looks like, Matt Kaulig and Chris Rice probably treat him to like 10 more rounds of golf or something like that. But it's going to be exciting to have somebody like that back. It's kind of like he's kind of taken the full circle. He's out, and after everything that happened in 2018 with JTG, and then him doing TV part-time and Kaulig, more part-time Kaulig, and then he's running full-time Xfinity again. Then he's running full-time Xfinity again, and now he's going back Cup racing after all these years. It's kind of the full circle. But yeah, it'll be fun to see AJ back. I think he's definitely gonna be contending for some wins, and I think he's gonna contend for championship as well. definitely going to make Colleague a lot better.
My opinion on this, I kind of drink all the Kool-Aid here from Ben's tweet about this earlier today. To be honest with you, yeah, it's great that AJ is making this full circle ride back with a team that really needs him and has really treated him well. Chris Rice and everyone there at Colleague Racing, and it just seems to be a really great fit for AJ Allmendinger after JT Daugherty coming back to Colleague, but at the same time, he's just on the cusp of greatness in the Xfinity Series. He's vying for a championship this year. He very well could have next year. And now, unfortunately, I'm right there with you, Ben. Instead of him going for a championship in 2023 in the Xfinity Series, he's just going to be another Cup leech. Unfortunately.
Well, that's assuming that he does run some Xfinity races, and
he will.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what the plans are. I know
road courses on the schedule. Do you think he'll be in one of them?
I don't think he's doing it. No.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Potentially, here's something that to possibly watch out for. You have Noah Gragson. You have AJ Allmendinger. You're probably going to have Ty Gibbs go to the Cup. All of those guys are probably going to Cup next year. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see who's going to be in Xfinity. I know the Xfinity picture hasn't been put together yet, but you'll have Sam Mayer, you'll have Justin Allgaier, Brandon Jones, Justin Allgaier, and Josh Berry are probably coming back. Who knows what Colleague's going to look like? Who knows if Riley Herbst will be back? Who knows who's going to be at Gibbs? Who knows who'll be at RCR? Obviously, none of those rides have been confirmed yet. Yeah, it's going to definitely be interesting.
Yeah, well, and of course, Colleague brought that 14 car out for Justin Haley to make his grand return to the Xfinity Series at Daytona. So I've got a feeling you'll probably see AJ on a couple of the road courses next year. But Brandon, I'm glad you brought up my tweet because, the way I see it, the schedule next season with 8 road courses was kind of, tailor-made for AJ to have that large of a percentage. And, I'm happy for him. I think he totally deserves the opportunity. And, it's great to see that Colleague have put their trust in him. He's really helped them build that Xfinity program. We'll see if he can do the same on the Cup side, but I think it's going to take some time. And I feel like, he could win a championship this year. And then, if you look at it one way, I guess, what more does he have left to prove? But, I just feel like if he could continue to rack up, like if he stayed in the Xfinity Series for 3 to 5 more years, at the rate he's winning these road course races, at the rate, he just won a super speedway. He's now won at every kind of track for Colleague Racing here. So I just feel like, he was, on the cusp, like you said, Brandon, of doing something, legendary and maybe ending his career with, who knows, a win total in the 30s or maybe even higher than that if he stayed long enough. But at the same time, I understand that he's, obviously got a great thing going for him at Colleague. And my biggest concern is just that he would get burnt out again from the grind of the full 36-week Cup schedule. But that being said, the culture at Colleague Racing that he's enjoying, I'm sure, is very different than the grind that he was on at JTG Daugherty. And dare I say it, I think if Colleague continue to improve at the rate that they have, those cars might even be a little bit better than what we've seen from JTG Daugherty in recent years. So, AJ, I think I had mentioned in that clip that we just played back, I think he had a top 10 at Bristol. He's had a couple of top 10s. Like, he won the race at Portland. Joe and I were out there to see that. And then he hops on a plane and got a top 10 the next weekend at Gateway in the Cup Series. So, he has done some great things with Colleague, not just in Xfinity, but also in Cup. He was a couple of corners away from winning the race at COTA, and then he and Ross Chastain got into it, but he had a great run there. He obviously won last year at the IMS road course in a car that was still an open car at the time. So, I honestly think, and, Casey talked about, contending for a championship as well. If you look at where the Roval is slated in the playoffs next year, he's won 3 Roval Xfinity races in a row. I don't think it's a stretch to say that he could make the round of 8 next year.
I believe that.
The number of road courses on the schedule, you've got to think he might get a win there. That would get him into the playoffs if he can have a solid first round. And then if he wins the Roval, he's in the round of 8. I don't think that's any stretch beyond what might be capable, what that Colleague team might be capable of in 2023. A stretch to maybe call him a championship contender all the way, but I think he could surprise a lot of people next year. But at the same time, you look at how he's running. If this were a straight up points battle, if there were no playoffs, he would easily be the championship favorite. I think he's only had 3 races outside the top 10 this year. He has run so well, been so consistent. Of course, the playoff system is going to throw a wild card and everything when we get to Phoenix, but he could win a championship. He could come back, obviously contend for a championship next year. I just don't know that he's going to enjoy the same amount of success, or that it's going to be as fun as the amount of fun that he's having right now in the Xfinity Series. And that does worry me just a little bit. But at the same time, it's a tremendous opportunity. And I certainly hope that he makes the most of it, because he has enjoyed an amazing career revival here with Kaulig these last few years. And it's great to see. Yeah, we'll catch up on some comments from the chat room here. Kobe saying the Kaulig Cup program will benefit from AJ's experience. He can help them improve, and the partnership with Justin Haley will be fun to watch, dad and son, as they say. Yes, I know Justin and AJ have a great relationship as well, and I think they're going to work well as teammates and in the Cup Series as well. I have no reason to doubt that. Kobe also saying Chris Rice mentioned Chandler Smith's name in an interview recently. That would be interesting because, of course, there's still a lot of dominoes to fall with the whole Kyle Busch situation. That would be a Toyota to Chevy team that Chandler Smith could move to, so that would be interesting to see if that's the route that he takes. And then Adam Lemery saying the 2023 Xfinity Series is going to be good. Yeah, of course, still a lot of pieces to fall into place, but we have some very good rides opening up. I think that's going to be a great opportunity for a lot of drivers going forward next season.
Chandler Smith to a Chevy team. That should be interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right yet, but we'll work on it.
Well, I mean, does Kyle Busch to a Chevy team feel right?
None of it feels right.
It's been 15 years.
Season, my favorite time of the year, and which means I kind of may not be able to comment on some of these things.
Yeah, it's going to be nice seeing Allmendinger battle with Chase Elliott and Tyler Reddick at all these road courses. I'm just thinking of that next year. It's going to be sweet.
Yeah, it is. Should be fun.
Right.
Oh, let's Haley Deegan has an announcement tomorrow. Wonder what that will be.
You know, I just saw that. I was scrolling through Instagram before while Josh was giving his Moto2, Moto3 recap, and I did see that she's got an announcement ready to come next season. So we'll see what that is going to be tomorrow. It sounds like she's going to announce it on her YouTube channel, if I'm reading the Instagram post right.
Yes.
So we'll be on the lookout for that. But again, you know, that's another piece of the puzzle to fall into place. We've been hearing these rumors that DGR might be going back to Toyota, so you know we'll see. There's a lot of contract situations that would affect, because of course Deegan is now with the Ford camp, and but then again she was with Toyota at the start of her career. You know, you might see her reuniting with them. You know, she has struggled a little bit with Ford in the Truck Series, so you know we'll know soon enough. I guess we'll know within the next 24 hours here, but we'll keep our eye on that as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of silly season pieces to fall, especially we could see a lot of announcements this weekend since we're in Charlotte. And, of course, it's where all these teams are based. Obviously, that A.J. Allmendinger announcement could be official within the next few days, because I know that Kaulig's Fan Fest is, I think, this week. And who knows what could happen when I go to Toledo, because a lot of the some announcements could affect some of those teams that are there. So we'll definitely keep you updated on definitely, if I find something, I might just have to appear on Grid on one of these shows.
Well, we'll keep our eyes out for that. We're coming up on a full hour-long show, guys, so thank you both once again for joining us. Before we let both of you go, Brandon, I'll go to you first. What's your one shining moment from this weekend in motorsports?
I had this one handpicked very easily. Just the fact that we had no major incidents at Talladega on Sunday. That's a huge win for NASCAR, and just a huge win for the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series. Of course, the Truck Series had some problems, but I was mainly focused on next gen concerns, safety issues, and it was nice to see Talladega, where everyone thought that was going to be the place where it was all going to come crashing down or something just astronomically terrible to happen. It actually ended up just fine, and so I'm glad the good Lord was watching over all of that.
Yeah, he basically just took mine. Yeah, I agree with Brandon. That's my one shining moment.
Well, I will echo both of you. Obviously, we're also grateful that there were no major injuries to come out of this weekend. Of course, we are thinking of Jordan Anderson and certainly are hoping for the best for him. But in the Cup Series in particular, with all the concerns, all the talk going on with the next gen car, this was, I believe, my one shining moment on yesterday's show as well. Everybody is so thankful that we made it through the Cup Series race without any major incidents and actually had a clean race to the finish. It's kind of become a bit of a rarity these days on super speedway. So it was refreshing to see that, not just in the Cup Series, but in the Xfinity Series as well. If I had to pick a shining moment from the Xfinity Series, I guess, especially with the news today, it makes sense to go with AJ Allmendinger. And like I said, it's been an amazing bit of a revival to his career here. And I never would have imagined that we'd be talking about him as a full-time Cup Series driver again after his contract came to an end with JTG Doherty. But here we are. Kaulig Racing has totally brought the best out of him. He's having an amazing time with that team right now. And, I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do in 2023 on a full Cup Series schedule. And again, I think they might surprise a lot of people. I don't think they're going to be the championship contenders that they are in Xfinity right now, but I think that they could make a strong run at winning a couple of road course races for sure. And the way they've been running on some of these intermediate tracks and short tracks as well, who knows what the future is going to hold for the Kaulig team on the Cup side of things. Well, that is going to wrap it up for another episode of Grid Live Encore. And thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already. We're also streaming on LinkedIn and Twitch as well. Pretty much anywhere you can think of, we have a presence there. If you really like what you saw tonight, you can take 5 minutes after the show to invest in our Patreon. Thank you, as always, to Colin, Deshelle, Mark, and Robin. Your support means the world to us. It keeps us on the air. It allows us to go out and cover these races on site, as Casey will be doing at Toledo this coming weekend, as Joe and I did at Portland earlier this year. We truly, truly appreciate it. If you'd rather make a one-time donation, you can buy me a coffee. There's a link to that in the video description as well. Any amount will help us continue to grow our motorsport media outlet. Finally, visit our sponsor, Public.com, the stock market social media home. The referral code GRIDnet in the link below gives you $5 to invest. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. Now, on Wednesday, Kobe will have Grid Tonight, as he always does. Joe Samniego will host the Women in Motorsports program on Friday with Daniel Zeri. And as always, stay tuned for more Grid Live coverage next weekend, including Casey Campbell being on site at Toledo to cover the season finale for the ARCA Menards Series. Gentlemen, any final thoughts before we close out the evening?
Marco Andretti will be in the 48 for Big Machine Racing this weekend in the Xfinity Series, so that should be fun to watch. Brad Perez in the 35. Kaz Gralla in the 34. So, we got some interesting entries for the Roval. Josh Williams will be in a Cup car in the 78. Joey Hand, 15. Connor Daly will be in for the Money Team this weekend. By the way, Miami 4, Atlanta 0. You're welcome.
Thank you for that. Still haven't turned it on yet.
Because I care.
I guess I'm done here.
Well, I will echo that, Casey. It is great to see Connor Daly making a visit here in the NASCAR Cup Series. Yes. And Kobe mentioning a couple as well. James Davison in the 18, Daniel Kvyat, of course, will be back in the 26. So it's always fun to see.
Danny Kvyat will be in both the Xfinity and Cup race.
Right.
In the 26 car.
Yes.
So, and for Sam Hunt Racing in the Xfinity Series, and then Team Heseberg will actually run 2 cars. Of course, Loris Heinzman will also be back as well.
Right. Always fun to see. I know the road course ringers don't necessarily get.
Speaking of road course ringers, can't forget him.
Of course. Yep. I was just going to say, it's a shame that the road course ringers don't always get a chance with top Cup teams anymore, but it is still fun to see them turn up in the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series. So we've got a lot to look forward to there. For Joshua Burch, Casey Campbell, and Brandon Crosslin, I'm Ben Schneider. Thanks as always for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on Public.com.